Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking your entire grip on reality and, well, basically turning it completely upside down.
Yeah, it's definitely a paradigm shift, to say the least.
Right. So to start, I want you to picture yourself standing in a room, you're looking around, you're taking in the space, and for a second, let's just say this is a dream. You are fast asleep, but you don't know that yet.
Right, because you are fully immersed. I mean, as far as you're concerned, this environment is as real as literally anything you have ever experienced.
Exactly. And imagine I'm in this dream with you, and I look at you and say, prove to me this is real. Prove it.
You probably laugh.
Right. You looked around like, of course it's real. Look at everything. So I put a gumball machine right in front of you, and I ask you to tell me what it's made of. You tell me it's glass, steel, and chrome.
And you'd probably reach out to prove it.
Yes. You reach out, you lay your hand on the glass globe. It's cold, it's smooth. You knock on it, and it rings with that.
That really distinct sound of glass.
Exactly. You just used your senses to prove this object is real. But here is the massive problem, and really the entire mission of our deep dive today. Do you have glass inside your head?
Obviously not. Yeah.
Do you have steel or like cold, hard chrome anywhere inside your skull?
You absolutely do not. I mean, if we look at the physical reality of the human body, your skull is a dark, extremely wet, completely sealed vault. There is zero light, zero air, and certainly zero glass in there.
So what is that machine made of? Because you proved it was real with touch and sound, but it is actually made entirely of consciousness.
Right.
And if I ask you how far away the machine is, let's say we measure it, exactly 6 feet. But what is that distance made of?
Well, there's no space in your skull to create a 6-foot gap.
No. The distance itself is just an invention. We are pulling this incredible thought experiment from our source material today, a really fascinating video titled Not Possible by Chase Hughes. And we are exploring this deeply unsettling concept. What if every single thing you experience is just a simulation built by your brain?
And what's fascinating here is that this gumball machine scenario is not just a clever metaphor for dreaming.
No, it's not.
It is the biological reality of how you are experiencing the physical room you are sitting in right now. The waking world is rendered in the exact same dark, wet, sealed room of your skull. I mean, you are not looking out of your eyes like they're windows.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if my eyes aren't windows, what exactly is happening when I look around the room? So our brain is essentially like a live stream with a built-in lag, constantly editing out the buffering moments so we don't notice the glitch.
That analogy actually captures the mechanics perfectly. Let's look at the biological process of human vision. Try to catch your own eyes moving in a mirror.
Oh yeah, you literally can't do it.
You can't.
Yeah.
Every time your eyes jump from one point of focus to another, which is a movement neurologically called a saccade, your brain completely blacks out your visual field.
It just cuts the feed entirely.
It cuts it entirely so you don't get dizzy from the blur of motion.
But wait, if my brain is constantly cutting the feed, how do I not see the darkness? I never feel like I'm blinking or blacking out when I look around a room.
Well, this is where the brain becomes a master editor.
Mm-hmm.
It uses a mechanism called chronostasis.
Chronostasis, okay.
Right, so when your eyes finally stop moving and lock onto a new target, the brain takes that new, still image and literally stretches it backward in time.
Wait, really? It backdates it.
It backdates your perception to cover up the blackout. It overwrites your immediate past so you feel like you were looking at that new object the entire time your eyes were moving.
That is wild.
And if we calculate all those microscopic blackouts, you are functionally blind for 51 to 90 minutes every single day.
Up to an hour and a half.
Yep. And your brain is just forging the timestamps so you don't panic.
That is deeply unsettling. I mean,
Yeah.
we trust our vision completely, but our internal editor is just deleting up to an hour and a half of footage every day and lying to us about our own timeline.
Oh, and it goes even further when you realize that vision is bound by the laws of physics.
What do you mean?
Well, it takes time for light to bounce off an object, enter the pupil, hit the retina, travel down the optic nerve, and then be processed by the visual cortex into something you consciously recognize.
Right, there's a processing delay.
Exactly. Think about a professional baseball player swinging at a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. If that batter waited to see where the ball actually was in reality, they would swing milliseconds after the ball was already in the catcher's mitt.
Because the visual data is, outdated by the time it reaches their conscious mind?
Precisely. The brain solves this neural delay by forecasting. It calculates the trajectory and generates an image of where it predicts the ball will be by the time you experience it.
Why?
Your entire visual field is a prediction. You have never, not once in your entire life, actually interacted with the present moment.
So everything I am looking at right now is just a highly educated guess.
Completely.
And if the physical space around me is just a render, what about color? Like, I assume color is a concrete physical property of the world.
Not at all. Color only happens inside the viewer. No, it's just a subjective rendering applied to different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. If you zoom in to the atomic level of a silver ring, there's no atom that possesses the property of silver.
So silver isn't a real thing.
Silver is just a paint. Your visual cortex applies to those specific atoms so you can distinguish them. The source material actually brings up the dress phenomenon that went viral a few years ago to prove this.
Oh, it's like that viral dress photo. Half of us saw white and gold, the rest saw blue and black.
Great, and it broke the internet.
Yeah, we all thought the other side was crazy. But it was really just our individual rendering engines making completely different guesses on the exact same pixels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Millions of people looking at the exact same data, generating entirely different physical realities in the dark rooms of their skulls.
Okay, wait, I need you to explain the logic here because it defies basic sense.
Okay, sure.
If our brain is this incredibly powerful supercomputer, why is it constantly editing reality, delaying it, and painting it arbitrary colors? Like, if a predator is coming at me, how does having an inaccurate picture of reality actually help me survive? Shouldn't seeing the world with perfect objective accuracy give me the ultimate advantage?
I mean, it seems like it should, right? But cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman actually ran evolutionary game theory simulations with digital organisms to test that exact assumption.
And what happened?
He programmed some organisms to see objective reality perfectly, and others to see a highly simplified, heavily edited version. In every single simulation across hundreds of thousands of generations, the organisms tuned for perfect accuracy went universally extinct.
Extinct? But how? Having the ultimate truth seems like it would be the best tool for survival.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about your computer's desktop.
Okay.
When you want to open a document, you click on a little blue rectangular icon shaped like a folder. But that file isn't actually a blue folder.
Right, it's code.
In reality, it's a massive complex string of ones and zeros stored on a physical hard drive. If your computer forced you to interface with the objective reality of the ones and zeros, you would be overwhelmed.
Oh, I see. You'd never get an email sent.
Exactly. Evolution works the exact same way. The organisms that tried to process the overwhelming complexity of objective reality were simply too slow to react. Evolution built your perception as a simplified desktop interface.
To hide the truth.
It hides the truth to keep you alive. Accuracy is computationally expensive. Survival is cheap and fast.
So our perception is essentially a survival interface, not a window to reality. That makes sense for dodging a lion or, hitting a baseball. But the source material takes this a massive step further. It's not just our eyesight and hearing that operate as a survival fabrication. It's our internal emotional landscape, too.
Yeah, this raises a really important question about how much we trust our own feelings. Because just like color, you do not experience pure objective emotions. You assemble them from raw parts.
Assemble them, like a kit.
Kind of, yeah. When something happens, your sympathetic nervous system sends up physical signals, like an elevated heart rate, sweaty palms, shallow breathing, a flush of heat. But biologically, that physical static arrives in the brain with no label on it. Your body only has one general alarm system.
So my racing heart doesn't inherently mean I'm afraid or in love. It's just biological noise waiting for instructions.
Right, and your brain has to provide those instructions very quickly. It looks around at the context of your environment, grabs a logical label, and stamps it onto that physical static.
Wow.
To show how malleable this is, researchers in a famous 1962 study injected volunteers with pure adrenaline without telling them what the chemical was.
What did they tell them it was?
They just told them it was a vitamin supplement.
Oh, wow.
Then they placed these subjects in a waiting room with an actor.
So they have adrenaline flooding their system, their hearts are pounding, but they have absolutely no idea why.
Exactly. For some subjects, the actor in the room pretended to be wildly euphoric, playing with hula hoops and making paper airplanes. For other subjects, the actor pretended to be enraged, furiously complaining about the study and ripping up paper.
Okay, so totally different environments.
Totally different. And the subjects had the exact same chemical in their veins. But the ones with the happy actor labeled their physical static as euphoria.
And the angry actor.
The ones with the angry actor labeled the exact same physical static as intense anger.
That is crazy. They felt completely different core emotions assembled from the exact same chemical building blocks.
Yeah, and we see this even more clearly in the 1974 Bridge study by Dutton and Aron. They positioned an attractive female researcher in a public park to stop men, ask them to fill out a brief survey, and give them her phone number in case they had questions.
Okay, standard psychological setup.
Right. Half the men were approached while sitting on a solid, safe wooden bench. The other half were stopped in the middle of a terrifying, wobbly suspension bridge swaying 150 feet in the air over a canyon.
That is a very different environment from a park bench.
Very. The researchers then tracked how many men from each group actually called the woman back.
Wait, so someone could go home thinking they've met the love of their life. Oh, actually, the guys on the terrifying bridge called her back at up to 9 times the rate of the guys on the safe bench.
Right. They did 9 times the rate. Their heart rates were skyrocketing because they were hundreds of feet in the air on a swaying bridge. Their sympathetic nervous systems were screaming in terror.
Like they misread it.
Exactly. Their brains looked around, saw the attractive researcher, grabbed the nearest contextual label, and stamped romantic attraction onto their fear response.
Wait, so someone could go home thinking they've met the love of their life, but really they just experienced an adrenaline spike from being 200 feet in the air. Emotion is literally just a DIY kit. Our brain snaps together based on whatever room we happen to be standing in.
Yeah. You have never simply felt a prepackaged emotion. Your brain acts as a real-time interpreter, constantly assembling feelings based on a prediction of what the bodily static means in that specific moment.
Okay, so if my immediate visual reality and my emotions are just real-time guesses, I'm left clinging to my memories. Like, at least the past is a locked record. The things that already happened to me, those are secure, right?
Well, we rely on that assumption to maintain our sense of identity, for sure. But the research on memory reconsolidation, which was spearheaded by neuroscientists like Kim Nader, completely dismantles that comfort.
Dismantles it how?
For a long time, science treated memory like a DVR system. You hit record, the file is saved onto the hard drive, and when you want to remember it, you just hit play. You're opening a read-only file.
Right. That's exactly how it feels. It feels like going down into a vault and pulling out a dusty tape that hasn't changed since the day it was recorded.
Nader proved that the vault doesn't exist. He discovered that every single time you recall a memory, it becomes chemically unstable. Yeah, the biological process involves a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which essentially unglues the synaptic connections of that specific memory. Retrieving the memory doesn't just play it, it forces the file open for editing, making it highly plastic and vulnerable to new information.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So, my defining life memory isn't a locked vault. It's more like a shared Google Doc. And the most recent editor was just whoever I told the story to at a dinner party last week.
That is literally the biological reality of nostalgia. While that memory is unglued, whatever emotional state you are currently in and whatever reaction the person you are telling it to has bleeds into the open file.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If the dinner party guests laugh, your brain slightly exaggerates the comedic timing before it re-solidifies the memory. If you recall a childhood event while you are currently angry at your parents, your brain weaves that present-day anger into the past event.
And then it saves that version.
The new, edited version overwrites the old one permanently. You do not actually remember your childhood. You only remember the last time you remembered it.
Which perfectly explains why siblings can have completely contradictory memories of the exact same family vacation.
Exactly.
They've just been editing their individual Google Docs in different directions for 20 years.
And it happens with events we swear are permanently burned into our minds, too. The source material references the 9/11 memory studies conducted by Tallarico and Rubin.
Oh, the flashbulb memory.
Right. Just days after the Twin Towers fell, they asked university students to write down exactly how they heard the news, where they were, who they were with, what they were wearing. These are what we call flashbulb memories.
Because the emotional impact is so high, it feels like a camera flash went off and captured every microscopic detail perfectly.
And the subjects felt exactly that way. But the researchers went back to those same people 18 months later, and in some cases years later, and asked them to recount the event again.
And I'm guessing things changed.
Wildly. They found that the participants' details had drifted drastically over time. They remembered being in entirely different locations with different people, completely contradicting their original day one written accounts.
Wow.
But the researchers measured something else, which was their confidence.
Let me guess. They were absolutely certain their new edited memories were the objective truth.
Their confidence hadn't moved a single millimeter. As false memory expert Elizabeth Loftus has demonstrated for decades, vividness and accuracy are not the same thing at all.
Right.
The brain can produce a wildly vivid memory that is entirely fabricated. The memories that define you, the ones that make up your core identity, are actually the least reliable because those are the files you open, unglue, and edit the most often.
This is genuinely unsettling.
Yeah.
Because we've established that the room I'm in is a delayed render, my feelings are assembled static, my past is an ever-shifting Google Doc. So now we have to apply this terrifying truth to the people in our lives. Because if everything is a simulation inside my sealed skull, then I've never actually met anyone, have I?
It's a dark thought, but skulls are sealed. The light reflecting off someone's face does not enter your brain. Only electrical signals do. This means you have only ever interacted with a software render of another human being that your own brain built.
Just a software character.
Yeah.
Just running on my internal hardware.
Think about how sparse the data you actually have on another person really is. I mean, even if you've been married to someone for 20 years, how many hours were you actively paying attention to them?
Probably not as many as I'd like to admit.
And of those hours, how many specific high-definition memories really stuck? It's a tiny, fragmented handful of data points. So what does a prediction machine do with incredibly sparse data?
It fills in the gaps.
It fills in the massive gaps. It builds a behavioral model, puts their name on it, and that is who you actually talk to, argue with, and love.
This explains shower arguments perfectly. You know exactly what I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
You're in the shower, having a completely vicious, simulated argument with your boss or an ex, and you are losing actual hours of your life, your heart is pounding, real cortisol is flooding your veins, and you are literally fighting a piece of software in your head.
And if you look closely at those simulated arguments, the software character of your boss always shows up hostile. They always say the exact thing required to infuriate you.
Why is that? Why does my brain want me to be mad?
This happens because the brain's rendering engine prioritizes survival, which means it weights memories based on threat level. A psychological threat is saved with the same priority as a physical one.
So the bad stuff gets saved in high def.
Right. An insult or a slight is saved in 4K high definition, while a mundane moment of kindness is saved in blurry 240p. So when you boot up the render of that person for a simulated fight, it overwhelmingly uses the high-definition threat data to build the model.
And the real tragedy is what happens after the shower. You bring the sequel to a completely fake fight into the real world. You walk into the office already furious at your boss for something their software render said to you while you were washing your hair.
It's absurd, but we all do it.
It is absurd. But the source material takes this concept of the render into some deeply heavy territory when it comes to grief.
Yeah, it fundamentally redefines the anatomy of loss. Because if every person you know is operating a completely unique software render of you inside their sealed skull, then when someone you love dies, you aren't just mourning their physical absence.
You're mourning a version of yourself.
Exactly. The highly specific render of you that existed only in their head, a version of you that was built from their unique sparse data, who is perhaps funnier or smarter or kinder in their eyes than you actually are, that dies with them.
Yeah.
That specific file goes permanently dark. No one else on Earth has that exact version of you on their server.
Think about that for a second. When you lose someone, a completely unique version of you is deleted from the universe. That explains the specific, hollow loneliness of grief perfectly. It's not just missing them, it's feeling a piece of your own identity get wiped out.
It is a profound realization. And it brings us to a massive practical problem in our daily lives.
Which is?
If we are all trapped in our own dark rooms, only ever talking to software models of each other, how do we ever actually communicate? How do you argue effectively, influence anyone, or change a person's mind?
So what does this all mean? If I'm arguing with my spouse, it's just my render of them yelling at their render of me. There are zero actual people involved in the conflict. So how do we fix anything?
Well, you have to understand what the source calls the fastball problem applied to human behavior.
A baseball thing again.
Right. Remember how the brain predicts the trajectory of the baseball to save energy? It does the exact same thing with people. Once a render is built, the brain vastly prefers to predict that person's behavior rather than spend the immense caloric energy required to actually perceive them in real time.
So if I try to change someone's mind with like a perfectly logical argument and a mountain of flawless evidence,
It goes straight in the garbage.
really, just trash.
The brain will actively bend, distort, or ignore your flawless evidence to protect its existing software model. Rebuilding the model from scratch requires too much energy.
So you can't influence them.
You cannot influence a person directly. You can only influence their render of you. If their render of you is slimy salesperson, then the most sincere, honest truth you speak will be filtered through that character model and sound like a manipulative tactic.
Right.
But if their render is trusted advisor, you could give them a terrible argument and their rendering engine will output it as profound wisdom.
The meaning is never in my words. The meaning is applied by their software before I even finish my sentence. So if I'm dealing with a boss or an in-law who has a terrible render of me, arguing with them is literally just feeding their software. They expect me to argue, so my arguing just proves their prediction is right. I have to break their forecast.
Exactly. In psychology, this mechanism is called prediction error. To break a bad render, you cannot use logic. You must introduce behavior that is so wildly outside their character model's forecast that their brain is forced to stop predicting and start perceiving again.
It's like forcing a reboot.
It forces a system reboot. One clean, undeniable violation of their expectations forces them to re-render you from scratch, accomplishing what 10 years of gradual, reasonable conversation could literally never do.
That is incredibly empowering, but also deeply strange. To walk around knowing that everyone you see is essentially sleepwalking, interacting only with a dream version of you. Which actually brings us to the final story from the deep dive today. And it takes us right back to where we started, the dream.
It's such a fascinating case from 1975 involving a sleep lab researcher named Keith Hearn.
Oh, right, the lucid dreaming experiment.
Yeah. He had a subject wired up to polysomnograph machines who was in deep, paralyzed REM sleep. They had arranged a secret signal beforehand. If the subject became lucid, meaning he woke up inside the dream and realized the environment wasn't real, he was supposed to deliberately move his eyes left and right, up and down, a specific number of times.
And one morning, the pen on the machine draws that exact pattern. Left, right, up, down. He sent a message from one reality to another.
But the mechanism of how he sent it is what matters. He didn't use real eyes.
Because he was asleep.
His physical eyes were closed in a dark room. He used the fake rendered eyeballs inside the dream space to send a physical message to the outside world. He knew he couldn't exit the dream room. The dream walls were still fake. The dream light was still manufactured by his brain.
But the one thing that fundamentally changed was his awareness.
Yeah.
He knew it was a construct.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here. You cannot exit the render of reality. You are permanently stuck in the dark, wet room of your skull, experiencing delayed vision, assembled emotions, and heavily edited memories.
That sounds bleak, but there's a flip side.
Right. Because the one who knows it's a construct is the only one who can navigate it. Knowing that you, your adversaries, your clients, and your family are all asleep inside their own isolated models is your only leverage to actually connect with them.
It completely changes how you see every single interaction. You stop fighting the person and start navigating the software. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Something that takes everything we've just discussed and points it right back at the mirror.
Yep.
If every person you meet is operating a slightly different, wildly inaccurate software render of you in their heads, and your own memories of yourself are constantly being unglued, overwritten, and mutated based on your current mood, what if the you that you think you are, the voice in your head telling you who you are right now, is just the most outdated, unverified render of them all? Think about that next time you knock on the glass of a gumball machine. Until next time.